it's me again. I'm at the Lowry in Salford still. It feels like I've been here for weeks. This week I am talking to Nicholas Parsons on this podcast, who is so far the most elderly person we've had on the podcast, but never stop dreaming. We'll get someone older. Don't you worry. He was fantastic. I know you're going to enjoy this. If you like these podcasts, come and see us live. Go to richardherring.com/gigs to find out all about where we're coming. And it's all over the place, including the Edinburgh Fringe, where Nicholas will also be doing his chat show. We're in direct competition. There's lots of great guests coming up for that. We're going to have the best people in Edinburgh that we haven't had on this before, and maybe some of the ones have had on this before. Plus, you can see more about the podcast at RHLSTP.co.uk and sign up to become a member and get loads of bonus stuff and help us pay to make even more episodes. Thanks very much for your time. Now let's sit back, relax, and enjoy RHLSTP. I've got a message on my phone. Who's it from? Oh, it's my wife. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. Please welcome a man who has become a bit too obsessed with the Wiggles. It's Richard Herring. Thank you very much. Hello, London. Good to be back. I was just up in Birmingham. It was horrific. Terrifying place to be. They were lovely. Thank you, for Birmingham, for having me. Welcome to a podcast that everyone is calling Richard Herring's Lobotomizing Shania Twain podcast. Every week we're going to get Shania Twain on and say her name properly and just take a different bit of her brain out, see what function that has. I'm looking forward to sucking out her hypothalamus and see how that affects her short-term memory. Can't wait to see Nicholas Parsons do that. I was hanging out with some teenagers down at the shopping centre. They were wearing Heelys. Me too. We were kind of walking along where we wanted to, but then every now we just kind of... It's pretty cool. They call it RHLSTP, so I don't know if that's going to catch on. Because of my daughter, a 5-year-old, and I've got a 4-year-old, sorry. She's growing up so fast, but not that fast. And I've got a 1.5-year-old son. We watch the Wiggles an awful lot. Okay, I don't know if you haven't got kids, you might not be aware of the Wiggles. They're an Australian group. They've kind of like Doctor Who transitioned. Is that the right word? No, that's not what Doctor Who does. Well, he sort of has. They're this very jolly group of Australians who sing very infectious songs that literally all day long are in my head. I wake up and one of them's playing in my head. I go to sleep, they're playing in my head. I had a dream about the Wiggles. I was at a party with the Wiggles. Emma and Lackey used to be in a relationship. They got married and now they're getting divorced. And if you watch the Wiggles, I'm trying to work out where they are in their relationship at that point. I think the first time they have sex is just before they record Emma on the swing being the moon lady. That's my... Just look at her face and his face, and I think you'll see I'm right. But I got tweeted by Anthony Wiggle, because Sanjeev Bhaskar, who knows everyone, I said I was obsessed with the Wiggles, and Sanjeev Bhaskar introduced me via Twitter to her, and I got tweeted by, and I could say to my daughter, I've been chatting with Anthony Wiggle. Honestly, watch the Wiggles. My obsession with Emma Wiggle is getting into dangerous... It's getting into Rebecca from CBeebies. It's a good job she's in Australia, that's all I can say. But anyway, look... Enough of that. We've got a fantastic guest for you this week. I'm very excited. He's just won an outstanding contribution to broadcasting at the Broadcasting Press Guild Awards. And I assume that's because of the role he's best known for, playing the mayor in Bodger and Badger. Will you please welcome Nicholas Parsons, CBE, ladies and gentlemen. Nicholas Parsons. Watch all these wires, Nicholas. It's a very dangerous area to be.
Don't stop.
There's a microphone for you.
Right, there we are.
Now we have to stop now.
You were going so well, I don't know why you bothered to ask me to come on.
Oh, well, I was running out of steam, so luckily you're here.
Luckily, it's been bloody well by design. Behind the door, you phoned me up and asked me to come. I didn't happen to be passing and I dropped in. You phoned me up, we booked it, we negotiated it.
We negotiated.
You have a lovely, lively audience, don't you?
They are, they're very nice, aren't
Yes.
they?
Are they always like this?
Yeah, usually. I mean, you know, the smell is usually like this. And you'll
Are you suggesting that this audience is unwashed? No. They're very smart and... Or are they? I forgot. Yeah.
They're okay. They're pretty... You know, they're all I've got. And I love them. I know Emma Wiggle, let's face it. But... do you remember working with Bodger and Badger, Nicholas?
Yes, I do. I remember everything I've ever done. And that was a fascinating experience. It's the first time I've ever been introduced as working with Bodger and Badger.
Yeah.
And other people think of more interesting things than I've done, but not Richard Herring. The most down market thing I've ever done, and he says, "This is welcome in Bodger and Badger." Nicholas Parsons.
It's almost like I deliberately chose something obscure, Nicholas, from your...
The problem is, you see, Richard...
Yes.
I have had a very long and interesting and eclectic career.
Yes.
I've done so many different things and performed in so many different capacities. It's difficult to define me. You see, the trouble is, because I've got a very successful radio show at the moment, and I did a very successful quiz once, I'm known to some people as a quiz show host.
Sure.
I'm not. I'm an actor. In fact, what I say when people say, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm an actor who's done lots of different things." But I became well known as a serious actor, became known as a comedy actor. I was doing a lot of cabaret. But you see, this is the thing about the British. Particularly the English, rather more than the Scots and them. You see, in America, if you do lots of different things, they give you credit for the diversity of your talent. But in this country, they want to confine you. They want to put labels on you. So when the quiz show was successful, they said, "Oh, he's a quiz show host." When the other thing was, "Oh, he's a presenter. Oh, he's an actor. Oh, he's a comedian." But I'm not. I'm all of those bloody things.
Yeah. Well,
I don't usually swear on the stage, but
you're welcome to.
There must be something about your personality.
Let's see what we can build you up to. See where we can get by this.
No, I couldn't reach your heights or your depths.
Yes, I think that's more correct. Well, it is an amazing thing because I think I'm nearly 52 years old.
Are you?
I'm nearly the exact same age.
You look older, actually.
Thank you. It's good. Well, what terrifies me is to think that if I had as long a career as you, that I wouldn't yet be halfway through my show business career at 52.
Well, I can't believe I'm 95 years of age.
I
It's
can't.
ridiculous. Unbelievable.
It's amazing.
I could tell you, this thing I am quite proud. I am probably the oldest actor continually and working at the present moment. I mean, David Attenborough's older, but he's not older than me. He's still working, but I'm older than him, and I'm actively employed.
Well,
most people have dropped off the twig by now.
They certainly have.
I don't know how much longer I can hold on.
Well, I think you must be. I mean, if you could go now, it'd be very good for the podcast. It would be very good for figures. But I'd be upset. But I'd soldier on.
You should have to describe what I was doing then for the laugh.
It's also filmed, so the people who are listening.
You're really getting your money's worth, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Nicholas, I rang him up to offer him the job, and he said, "It must be very difficult for you to get guests with the fees you're offering." He's trying to talk up, trying to get more money. I might give him more money. We'll see.
But then when they mentioned the magic name of Richard Herring, I said, "Oh, of course I'll do it."
Well, what is very interesting... back to your career. Well, no, because
Have you got questions written down there?
I've just got some little helpful things written down, but
I don't have a conversation without things written down.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people, because what I was saying is I'm 52, and a lot of people wouldn't know that you had this. For me, the first time I saw you was Sale of the Century, which people of my age will remember. Other people will know you from Just a Minute, which has been running as long as I've been alive, more or less. But before that, you were, as you said, you acted in lots of films. You're a film star.
No, I never was a film star. I was a film...
You're a film actor.
I did play the lead in a number of West End shows.
Yes.
I was in Boeing playing the lead at the Duchess Theatre for 15 months. I mean, this is the things you are proud of. My only name above the title, Nicholas Parsons. In fact, there's a lovely story about that because but the thing that really... I wanted to regress for a moment because the thing that really established me was the Arthur Haynes show.
Yes.
And that was in the 60s. And we were the top comedy show on independent television. And I was well known for working in a comedy partnership. And that broke up because he wanted someone else who didn't get so many laughs. And, I was standing outside the Duchess Theatre.
I've been there, don't worry.
That wasn't funny. I don't know why you laughed. Anyway, and this chap walks down. He was probably coming from Covent Garden because it was a market. And he said, here's Nicholas Parsons, isn't it? I'll recognise you, yeah. Yeah, Nicholas, we don't see you on the old box very much now, do you? I said, well, look up there. He said, Nicholas Parsons in Booing. I said, no, that's a play in there, Nicholas. That's a play. Yeah, on the stage doing all the... Here, Nicholas, do you realise something? That geezer's got the same name as you. That's how they think, you see.
But the double act's very interesting. I was also in the double act, Nicholas, which I think was what I got a little laugh for.
What was your double act?
It was with Stuart, a guy called Stuart Lee. He disappeared off the radar a bit. Once he... sadly, he didn't die like Arthur Haynes did, but he survived. He still survives. But...
It's the first time I've been in a show with a man interviewing who's getting as many laughs as you.
But I'm interested because you are, but throughout your career, and I think still in Just a Minute, you're a fantastic straight man to all the panellists.
Yeah.
And I think it's a job that doesn't get the credit it deserves, and because it's so hard to be an effective straight man.
There is a technique. You need to be a foil to the people. In other words, to flatter their ego in a way that it brings the best out of them. I mean, my dear friend Paul Merton, who makes these ridiculously rude jokes about my age. And people said to me, does Paul actually not like you? I said, yes, he's a very good friend. But Paul has got that great comic gift. He'd make a joke about my age. Somebody will say something about, Caesar and Cleopatra. He said, because you know, Nicholas, you were there, weren't you? And in fact, he did say once when I had a big birthday party and he was making a speech, he said, what a lot of people don't know, he said, Nicholas is actually mentioned in the Bible. I believe he did a gig at the Last Supper. He said it didn't go very well. Anyway, beside the point. I mean, I said... Oh, you should keep it going if you want to keep laughing. I said once in the show, I said, yes, I'm very lucky in one sense, but because my brain is obviously many years younger than my age, but in my legs, I certainly feel my age. And he said, well, it's a good thing it's not the other way around, isn't it? Otherwise, you could go on a good long walk and not know where the bloody hell you were.
But there's something...
Which nearly happened this evening, by the way. I couldn't find this place.
I tell you, we made so many arrangements that you wouldn't get lost and we still lost you. But, at least we found you again.
Well, no, you didn't find me. Strangers in the street found me. I mean, this is true. A lovely fellow comes up to me. The driver of the taxi that brought me here, he was lovely too. He walked down carrying the bag. I've got some books if you want one afterwards, but you don't have to buy one. Anyway, and this fellow walks up and he recognised me. And so he chatted to me, can I have a selfie? I said, well, if you must. And he said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I've come to do a show. He said, well, at that theatre there. I said, well, I think it's that theatre. And he chatted to me and he waited. I mean, if it hadn't been for him, I'd still be out in the bloody street there.
It was part of our plan,
but
it didn't go to...
It wasn't very funny, was it, really? But it was true.
So let's go back to the beginning of your life.
Yes.
It's a long time ago. Not as long ago as we were just discussing. But your dad was a doctor, is there a practitioner?
Yes, I was born in a little market town in Lincolnshire called Grantham.
Yes, which we
I always pause there, because a lot of people in the audience know that a certain very well-known politician was also born in Grantham. Not with this audience, anyway. Margaret Thatcher. Do you heard the name? Anyway, and my father, who was a doctor in a practice there, had amongst, of course, when she was a little girl, she was Margaret Roberts, and he had amongst his patients the Roberts family. And when a journalist, and they loved to, embroider stories, when they heard that my father was the doctor to the Roberts family, he embroidered on it and said, Nicholas Parsons' father brought Margaret Roberts into this world. Well, of course he didn't, and he was a very discreet doctor. He would never have mentioned it, even if he had. I phoned the guy up. I said, that wasn't true what you said. It's embarrassing. He said, not really, Nicholas. It made a good story, didn't it? Anyway, I never liked her. All I can say is if he did, he should have shoved her back again.
She'd have found a way out. So as a young man, they didn't really want you to be an actor, your parents, is that
No, I wanted to be an actor from the earliest age I can remember, but I was born at a time when you didn't do it. I mean, nowadays, everybody wants to get into show business. Look at these talent shows. There are thousands of them queuing up to come on there. And when I said to my father that I wanted to be an actor, I mean, his attitude was typical of the time, very succinct. He said, oh, don't be ridiculous. He said, that's not a proper job. And my mother, of course, was horrified, though she used to go to the theatre or not. But she thought everybody in the theatre was either debased or debauched or degenerate. And I said to her, Mother, I said, you admire people like, Laurence Olivier and Ralph Richardson and Peggy Ashcroft and Sybil. She said, yes, I do. I said, well, do you think they're like all those people you describe? She said, no, but isn't it a pity they have to work with those sort of people? So I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere there.
And was she right when you did start working with them? Were they all debauched?
Absolutely. I'm now working with Richard Herring.
So you did some other...
I see. I'm delighted you've dressed for the occasion.
Thank you. This is my smartest jumper.
He said, you will be wearing a collar and tie, won't you? I said, well, what are you wearing? He said, well, I'll be wearing something smart. That's his smart outfit, right?
Smart. Next week I'm going to wear a suit.
Actually, my uncle then took a hand because he pointed out that I was always quite clever with my hands, which I see being creative, because I still do take grandfather clocks to pieces and put them together again. Did a program about it called Marie Antoinette's... Oh, it doesn't matter. You probably didn't hear it. Anyway, it was a very good documentary. Anyway, he got in touch with some relations in Glasgow, because I've got some Scottish blood, and they got in touch with friends, and the next thing I knew, at the beginning of the war, I was just over 16 years of age, they'd arranged for me to begin an engineering apprenticeship on Clydebank. And I went straight from the protected atmosphere of a well-to-do professional middle-class family to the rough, aggressive attitude of Clydebank. I didn't know what they were talking about to begin with. I'll probably tell you, Nick, I still come in. I saw it, I jump out, come back, no, and of course, I came up there with, I very much of a public school accent then, I would talk very much more like that. So can you imagine on working there, and I suddenly say, well, chaps, what are we going to do today? I mean, I remember one of the apprentices came to me one day, he said, hey, Nick, we're going to ask you a question. I said, are you a boss's man? And I thought, I know what's behind that question. I said, why? I said, oh, no, I don't know the bosses at all. Well, of course I knew them. They got me the bloody job. And he said, because that's okay, because, I mean, you're mucking. I'll tell you this, Nick. You get your horns out, we'll teach you how to be a man. By the time you leave here, you'll be a man, I'll tell you. Because you make us laugh and all that. But if you were a boss's man, Nick, oh, you'll be finished. We'll crucify you. Can you imagine? I survived under this environment. And I did 5 years there. And they became my mates. And this is why I realized I think it was the showbiz instinct. Because if you walk on, you need to make a rapport with your audience. And I realized instinctively that I had to make these chaps my friend. Otherwise, I would be crucified.
Of course, yeah.
But it was a living, learning experience. In fact, it's one of the few things I'm really proud of, far more than my professional things I did 5 years. And they're wonderful people. They're wonderful. They are the salt of the earth.
Well, it is. Whoever sent you there must have been trying to kill you, Nicholas. So well done for surviving.
Well, you're trying to do a pretty good job now.
I'm not.
What other questions have you got?
I think
there?
you're immortal. I've got. Well, there's lots just some things to remind me about that you did. Well, like with the films, did you do a film called An Alligator Named Daisy?
Yeah, I did actually.
What did you play in An Alligator Named Daisy, and what was going on in that film? Is it a happier time?
You remind me of something I'd forgotten about until now.
Okay.
But they did have real alligators there.
Did they?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a woman who trained these things, these alligators with them. And I don't know what part I was playing now. It was such a long time ago, but all I remember was bloody alligators. Yeah, they were quite frightening. I was probably playing some pompous twit. They cast me a lot at rather pompous English people. Yeah. And I'm not. I'm really more of a Scot than an Englishman. That's me. I'm down to earth and all that. But,
sorry, we're not on
very
Clydebank
quiet
now.
I'm back in Clydebank.
There's so many film credits. It's incredible. Films that people might remember now. Carry On Regardless. You remember
Carry On Regardless.
Was that the only Carry On film you were in?
Yes, the only Carry On, because they had their own thing. I did a lot of films for the Bolting brothers. Carlton Brown at the FO.
Oh, yes.
The brothers-in-law. That was the biggest film role I had.
Right.
With Richard Attenborough and. He's dead now. They all are dead, actually. Now. And,
I mean, even Bodger's dead now. So I mean, you've outlived everyone.
You want to rub this bloody Bodger thing in, don't you?
Badger has been a lot quieter since then as well. So you have.
I know the biggest film part I had was with Jerry Lewis.
Yes.
The American comedian. Don't raise the bridge, lower the river.
Yes.
He was an absolute character. And
yes,
he was the American attitude that if you're a star, you can throw your weight about, and he did.
Yes.
And I had to have a fight with him at one time. They got a stand-in for that, actually.
Oh, right.
Yes, I remember that. It's not very funny, this story. I don't know why we're talking about it.
Well, no, it's interesting to work with Jerry Lewis. So
yeah, I did. And I see the British and Americans have a different attitude. When I did the Carry On film, they worked to a very tight schedule. And that's the reason they get those wonderful people for modest prices. And I did a scene there. It was a very long scene with wine being poured over me by Jones Simmons at the end. And the director, lovely man, he said, well, how was that for you? And I said, well, I thought the run-through went much better. And he said, do you want to do it again? I said, well, I'm delighted to do it again if you want. And we did it again. Then he phones up my agent and said, it's difficult, we're not going to have him again. And I remember, because when I was doing the Jerry Lewis film, there was a American director. And he said at the end of one scene, do you want to do it again? Because we can do a better one. I said, yeah, we can do a better one. And I just wanted to remember. I said, come back, I know. Because I was sitting in bed at the time. I said, no, I don't want to do it again, I don't. And I told him that story. And this is the difference between the Americans and the British. He said to me, Nicholas, if you think you can do a better one, we're going to do another take.
Yes.
Please do it. But it bloody well has to be better. And we did it. He said, great. We did the right thing. Now, that's the American attitude. The British was, you're wasting sellotape. Not sellotape, was it? It's very interesting. When you do lots of different work, you work with different people, different nationalities, they all have different ideas.
But the Carry On films really, they were trying to get everything out very cheaply, and famously none of the cast of Carry On ever saw any of the money that must have come in.
They weren't well paid, and they were very successful.
Yeah.
And they had their own team, and they all came back. I mean, all they could say was that they had continuity of employment, and to be employed in our profession, which has got the biggest unemployment ratio in the world. That's what they had. They had the security of knowing if there was a part in the next Carry On films, they would be cast.
Sure. But you've worked pretty much. I mean, has there been any times when you weren't working? Has there been difficult times?
Yeah, even tonight I'm working.
You're working, I mean...
when you can find the venue, that is, of course. No, I have been... I mean, it's one of the few things you can be proud of in show business. Yes, I have continuously worked. But then, as I said right at the beginning, I've spread my talent such as it is over a very broad spectrum of entertainment. And if something came along, I mean, when the quiz show came, I'd never done a quiz show, and I was phoned up by the head of production at Alligator Television. He said, Nicholas, would you like to do a quiz? And I thought, well, that's an interesting idea. I've never done that. So he said, well, meet me in London at the Alligator studios, because then there's all the different areas, you know, there's the ATB and different Granada that covered different areas of the country. And this was the Anglia area, based in Norwich. And I met him, and he showed me this tape of a show called Sale of the Century, but a very laid-back American asking some very simple questions. And I said, I couldn't do that. He said, no, Nicholas, we've commissioned it, and we would like you to front it. So you do it your way. And I said, well, I'm an actor, and I know if you can create a sense of drama and excitement, it's better. And so I said, the last session of questions, I'll ask some very simple questions and get attention going. And I used to write all the questions. They never told me to get paid for that. And anyway, so we did. And it did go very well. But then again, the press in those days, can you believe it? In those days, the press hated quiz shows.
Yes.
They were always very critical of them, and anyone who fronted them got all the flack. Bob Monkhouse and Bruce Forsyth and myself, because they wanted to sort of raise the sights of the viewing public. Nowadays, I mean, nearly every other show's a quiz show, isn't it? Yeah. And so I got there was just terrible press. They say you're spitting out the questions of the contestants. I used to get to know them beforehand to put them at their ease.
Yeah.
And people said, anything funny ever happened? No. In comedy shows, things happen which are funny. But in there, you try to avoid it. I mean, the funniest thing that ever happened with one answer I had was with a very simple question for £1. I said, according to the proverb, what should you not do if you live in a glass house? And she's pressed her buzzer and said, take a bath. Which, of course, it had been a comedy show, you'd have given a bonus point, wouldn't you? But the best story of all is an absolute true story. I used to go and chat to them beforehand to put them at their ease, so they'd be at ease. I said, towards the end, I was going much quicker. And if I don't be inhibited if I cut you off. Look at it logically. The more questions I can get in the time available, win or lose, the more money you're going to make. So I chatted to them. I had my cards in front of me. I said, I see you're a school teacher. And we talked about her for a bit. And I turned to the second contestant. I said, according to this information I have here, you're a pawnbroker. He said, well, Nicholas, I'm not really a pawnbroker. He said, I was a pawnbroker once, but he says, I've got a lot of barrows down the East End of London. It's all family business, you know. Got different barrows, different members of the family. All cash, nothing declared, money in the back of the hand. Do you understand what I mean? And I thought, well, I can't come on television and say I've got a cash business, you know, nothing declared. So I thought, I know, I called myself a pawnbroker. I come as a multitude of sins. And he went on like this for a bit. Then he turned to the third contestant. He said, and what do you do for a living? And he said, I'm an income tax inspector. That is an absolutely true story. I've never seen a man go white on the spot. He didn't do very well in the show.
It was a huge show. You got 21 million viewers.
Yes, it's amazing. I mean, At one time, 1 year, we had the top number of viewing figures, 21 million.
Yeah.
Beat every other show, Morecambe and Wise and everything. It's unbelievable. I don't know why it was so successful. I just got up and did my job there. But it was.
It's one of those, but it's one of those things that I think everyone remember. If you saw it, you remember it. The night turning round at the beginning. From Norwich, the quiz of the week. It was a very memorable show. You know.
Oh yes, I mean I like to think so. We wouldn't have the viewing figures if not.
No, exactly.
But when it finished, because it didn't finish because it ran out. But at that time, the IBA ruled the roost of what was on the network, and they wouldn't allow more than 3 major giveaway programs. And they thought it was time another company did a show, and they took ours off. When we had run for 15 years, which was pretty good. But, you know, I got so, what I was saying earlier, I got so identified with it, and known probably to most people as a quiz show host, I found I couldn't get any work for a while. Nice. It was a time, there was a battle. In fact, I got myself back with an amazing program. A friend of mine called David Lawrence, he put a program on. Rediffusion did it. I don't know whether these names mean anything to you, do they?
To some
4
of us.
people. And they were doing a program on called Night Network, which was running from 11 o'clock at night to 3 in the morning. And you couldn't have it now. And he met me, funnily enough, just not very far from here, at the Waldorf Hotel, and a very strange place to meet for a broad show. And he said, we're going a quiz there called the All-New Alphabet Game, which is really anarchic. And it was mostly pop people and so forth. And I got a lovely photograph of Alice Cooper and myself. And I asked these weird questions in a very kind atmosphere. It was very limited. But it took off. And suddenly I got a new following amongst the youth, the new generation of people.
You've never been afraid to send yourself up. And I think but that's great because there's the character of Nicholas Parsons, not the real Nicholas Parsons, is a sort of pompous... There's a pompous element.
I'm very good at playing pompous characters, yes.
And so they're there to put you with Alice Cooper or Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, who you work with.
Well, the result of that, you see, then the comic strip with Rik
strip.
Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door, in which they sent me up absolutely rotten. I got the script, actually, and this is typical because I read it and they were going to take the absolute piss out of this character in it. And I phoned my agent up and I said, that was a brilliant script. Yeah, I'd love to do it. There was a pause. She said, would you really? I said, yes, I think it's a very funny script. And I think they'd offered it to others. So they said, good God, I couldn't be treated like that. And these 2 drunken so-and-sos ran a thing called... Did anybody see Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door? Dreamy Time Escorts, do you remember? And they took the absolute mickey out of me. And oh yes, Peter Cook was in it. He played Mr. Jolly, who was cut-up body. So it was absolutely unbelievable.
You end up dead in a wardrobe, don't you? That's the.
I remember a lovely story. They had to do a scene where these 2 outrageous characters had knocked somebody off the road, and there were all kinds of people in who were well known then. Dawn French was playing a sort of walk-on role, and it was unbelievable. And they picked up a card from these things, which was Evening at the Dorchester with Nicholas Parsons. And they went along and they pretended to be the winners. And they had to do a scene where they arrived in their Dreamy Time escort and pick up Nicholas Parsons at the BBC. Well, the BBC wouldn't have any of that. They wouldn't let them do it. So they found a wonderful building somewhere in the city somewhere. And there was a real commissionaire there, sitting there. And they did the scene. They arrived and they dragged me out and put me in that thing. And I was talking to this commissionaire fellow. He said, Nicholas, I'll remember you when you were there at Arthur Haynes, you know. He said, he really did take to make it. And he said, but these geezers, he said, they're really having to go, aren't they? Oh, I said, no. I said, it's all much the same as Arthur Haynes, just having fun at my expense, and I'm good at being the fall guy. He said, no, come off it, Nick. I mean, Arthur Haynes took the mickey out of you. But these 2 are taking the full piss, aren't they? And they did take the full piss. It was a very, very popular show.
Yeah, it was an amazing... again, that was very much my era when I got massively into comedy, so the comic strip and all the stuff...
Massively into comedy? What is the difference between moderately and massively?
I think deciding to do it for the rest of your life is probably the turnover period. But Rik Mayall especially, but all the comic strip were... And again, you've outlived Rik Mayall as well, so there you go, there's another... Does anyone survive working with Nicholas Parsons? Adrian Edmondson's still fine.
I didn't quite get there. You muddled it. Got a good laugh. Let's say it again.
I can't remember what it was now. And you worked with Benny Hill as well, of course.
Oh, I worked with Benny for a time.
Yeah.
Benny was absolutely lovely. I mean, I don't know why he got cascaded for being political. One or 2 of his sketches were politically incorrect, but that was the comedy of the time. But he was a sweet, lovely man to work with. He really was a very lovely person. But unlike Arthur Haynes, who never minded me getting laughs on character, but I didn't have the gag lines. He made that quite clear. He was the comic, and I was the foil. But I could, till I got too many laughs, and then he got rid of me. But Benny, he was always. He was the old-fashioned comic. He had all the laugh lines.
Yeah.
And he said to me once, we were rehearsing a sketch, he said, no, always, you're such a sweet man. No, Nicky, just say the words on the page. Don't try and make them funny. That's my job. But he was so sweet about it, I just went along with it all.
It's interesting that there's some comedians who are just happy if there are laughs, and it doesn't matter who gets the laughs, and then there are those comedians who get put out if they're not getting
Well,
the
there's Stark. I mean, there's the old-fashioned comedian. I mean, Ken Dodd and all those. I mean, they had to have the laughs. Benny Hill and whatever. Nowadays, I mean, I think comedians are much more generous. You know, if it's going well and people are getting laughs, the show's a success.
Exactly.
So they're benefiting from that.
Yeah. No, so you did the Ed Sullivan show with Arthur Haynes as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you a lovely story there. Because Arthur had already said to me, because we'd done summer season together, and we were up in Scarborough, and he said, Nicholas, let's have a drink. We often had a drink afterwards and discussed the show. And he said, I've been thinking, I think we should separate. I said, but Arthur, we're at the peak of our success. We've done this wonderful season at the London Palladium. You know, we're at the top of the ratings. He said, I know, but he said, you do your own bits and pieces. I said, well, you go off and do films and so forth. But anyway, he said, no, we'll do another series together, and then we'll go to America together. I think he didn't want to go to America with someone new. So we did the series. We went to America on the Ed Sullivan show, and that was the top comedy show on, the top show, actually, on television in America. And Ed Sullivan had a pedestal at the side of the stage, and the scene would be acted out there. And we did a run-through of the sketch we were doing of the first show. And afterwards, Ed Sullivan walked over. He didn't go to Arthur Haynes. He came to me. He said, young man, I want to shake you by the hand. You are the finest straight man I've ever seen. And you should have seen Arthur's face. And then he turned to Arthur Haynes. He said, this guy's good. You want to hold on to him. Don't let him go. He makes you look good. You should have seen Arthur's face.
Well, it's a shame because that's, you know, it's a real skill. I was saying before, I think a lot of straight men, Ernie Wise, everyone always thinks that, Ernie, you know, Eric Morecambe's the funny one. But Morecambe and Wise worked because Ernie Wise was such a brilliant straight man and a very funny character.
Yeah, but he got laughs as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a partnership. They found the character of the foil, which was the best way to make it work, which is what Arthur Haynes and I did. But Arthur's the old-fashioned comedian. He didn't like me getting too much attention. But, I mean, you should be pleased. I mean, the more attention anybody gets. I mean, Just a Minute's a good example.
Yes.
I mean, if you're successful in it, like Paul Merton, who was brilliant in it. But Paul is one of the most generous comedians I know. I mean, if he's dominating and going very well, he'll often hold back to give others a chance. Because he knows the success of the show is more important than his own individual success. And sometimes comics, they're full of insecurity. That's why they became comedians, to get a laugh, to be reassured, you know. They're like Richard Herring. I mean, it's... I'm wicked, I'm sometimes. Forgive me that.
It's like, I'll be your foil. I don't mind being a straight man.
You're getting a lot of laughs, actually.
That's why we're never going to work together again, isn't it, Nicholas? This is the end of this double act. Look, Just a Minute is... I've been on Just a Minute, which was an amazing career goal for me, and it was a beautiful thing to be on. But I used to listen to that all through... I mean, all through my life. I mean, as much as I think it's a brilliant show still, and I think Paul Merton is an incredible player of it, especially. That period where Kenneth Williams and Peter Jones and Clement Freud, Derek Nimmo, that was an amazing show.
You know, like a lot of shows which are successful, it had the most ghastly beginning. It was a disaster, the pilot. They didn't want it. It was only because we had a very clever young man called David Hatch, who'd just come down from Cambridge and had joined the staff. This was his actually first producing job as a radio light entertainment producer. And it was an utter bloody disaster. But he saw the potential and he fought for it. And I wasn't going to be the chairman originally, you know. It was going to be Jimmy Edwards, which was a good choice because he had a program there called Does the Team Think, in which he had 4 comedians ad-libbing and so forth. And David came to me one day and said, Nicholas, we're never going to get Jimmy on a Sunday when we want to record the pilot. So will you do the pilot for me? I said, no, David, I'm wrong. I don't want that job. It's not right for me. I want to get back to doing improvised comedy. That's why I sold Ian Messer's idea. He said, well, do me a favour. You be chairman for the pilot, and if we get the series, you'll go back on the panel. I said, OK. We did the pilot, and I told you, it was a disaster. You see, Ian Messer, who thought of the idea, was a great inventor, but he wasn't a great producer. I mean, he gave us rounds, well, not us, we gave them rounds, where they couldn't use a plural. I mean, it's a fiendishly difficult game to play anywhere.
Yeah.
Another round where you couldn't use the personal pronoun. Another round where you couldn't use the definitive article. And it was all bitty, bitty, bitty. It really was terrible. And it's always fascinating to think that from this incredible disaster, an amazing success has arisen. Because David Hatch then came to me, he said, Nicholas, I fought for this. I really put my job on the line. And he said, we've got the series, but there was one thing they quite liked in the pilot, and that was your chairmanship. I said, but David, I was awful. He said, I know, but so was everybody else. So when you get offered a good job in show business, you don't turn it down.
Yeah.
You try and find a way to make that job work for you. So I called on my professional experiences in all the other areas I'd worked, and as I say on my one-man comedy show, which I do around the country, I must have done something right, because I'm still doing that job after 52 years.
And being the chairman is an incredibly demanding role. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's so... The way you keep... I don't think I could do it. The way you keep hold of all the information, the way you are ahead of the contestants or in the panel in terms of where the repetitions are. There's so much to corral around there.
I think that's the reason I'm younger in my brain than I am, because I've got a job. I have to concentrate in an incredibly intense way, because I've no backup. I mean, if someone presses a buzzer and says repetition, I have to remember whether he did repeat that word, 50 seconds earlier. And I've developed a sort of memory technique of following the gist and knowing, because you've got to keep it going.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody said to me, oh, do you have a backup? I said, can you imagine in a radio show, repetitions, let's play the tape back. Let's listen to it. Yes, he did repeat it, all right. Oh, it's all gone to pieces by then. So you have to concentrate like stink, and it is very, very demanding. And as I say, I think you have to use your brain in such a way that probably, because I'm a great believer, it helps to keep you young the more you use your brain. You couldn't care less.
They don't use their brain.
And I say, well, aren't I lucky? I got a job when I have to use my brain so intensely, it's helping to keep me young.
So use your brains.
Sometimes this audience, they laugh at wonderful things you say, and then they go bloody quiet.
They're thinking, oh, I better start using my brain. Some of that guy's never used his brain in his life. He's thinking, oh God, I'm going to die next week. I haven't thought it through. It's absolutely. I think the first time I did Just a Minute was in Edinburgh, and you recorded 2 shows, so it's impressive to do 2 in a day. But you'd also tripped over quite badly in the first show. You tripped over a speaker or something. Do you remember this in Edinburgh about 6 or 7 years ago? And everyone was obviously very worried that you'd fallen over, but you just got up and carried on and did 2 shows after having quite a bad fall. So that's...
I did have a nasty accident, yes. But I've forgotten how I damn it. Oh, well, no, it wasn't that. I was staying in digs.
Right.
And the phone went early in the morning, and it was in the other room. And I got out of bed, which, I'm not used to. It was, and they had a little mat on the floor. And as I got out of bed, my feet went from under me like that. I fell over, and I hit my head on the edge of a bedside table like that. And I was lucky, because if it had been a bit lower, it would have been the eye. And it caught me across there, and I got there's a scar there if you want to look closely. I could ask you all to come and have a look. But
have a look when they sign the books.
And then also on the eyebrow. And I didn't know what to do, because the blood was everywhere. Are they interested in this story?
Yes, they are. We like it.
I like a bit of blood, do you?
We do like a bit.
And so it was instinct. I mean, I picked up the phone and dialed home and spoke to my wife. And I just said, I've had this accident, I'm bleeding like hell. And she said, you've got to go to hospital. And I said, I know that, but I just wanted to talk to somebody. So Anyway, I phoned up the office. It was a lovely girl, and she'd come in early. I told her what had happened, and she saved my life. She said, "Stay there. I'm coming straight down." And what she did was she got a taxi to take me to the hospital. I think she'd warned them that there was an emergency coming in, and he had to work there, because I went in and they shuffled me straight through, and this very young Australian doctor came in, and he was a living image of, who's the chap who does The Last Leg?
Adam Hills?
Adam Mills.
Yeah.
Adam Hills. And he'd just been my guest on the show.
Right.
And this fellow was Australian, looked exactly like Adam Hills, and I think I got an alternative comedian who's stitching me up. And he stitched me up. I went back, and they said, I said, "No, I've got to work tonight." So I went on then for the next 2 or 3 hours with this huge patch over my hair. Yeah, you know, you do your showbiz, you keep going. Darling Sandy Toksvig was on the show as my guest that round. She said, "Come off it, Nicholas. We know it didn't really happen. You got pissed and fell over in the gutter, didn't you?"
And so you're still going up to the free. You do your show.
I'm going up again this year, yes.
Yeah?
I do a thing called the Nicholas Parsons Happy Hour, where I do a bit of stand-up.
Yeah.
And then I throw out gifts to the audience just to engage them with them. And then I have guests from the different shows, and they come on and plug their show, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And what is so lovely is people like Jason Byrne, who packs them out every night up there, his show, in a huge venue. He doesn't need to come on. He comes on because he's a chum.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I interview them, we chat, and we have a lot of laughs, and it's been very successful. I used to do 3 weeks. I cut it down to 2, and now I've cut it down to 10 days, which is quite enough. In fact, my wife says to me at the end of the season, "You're not coming back, are you?" I said, "I don't think I can resist it, Diane." So, bless her heart, she's coming up to help me again. And I love the atmosphere in Edinburgh. It's something very special, the Edinburgh Festival.
Were you at the first Edinburgh Fringe? Was that?
I was in it quite early on, yes.
Yeah.
But I did a different show then. I did a show I do around the country as well called, it's a cultural show about the nonsense poet Edward Lear.
Right.
And then I did another show where I did questions and answers, and it evolved into the Happy Hour show.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it. It's lovely. And if you're coming up, by the way, it's at the Pleasance, at the Cabaret Bar, and it's a lovely little intimate venue there.
Yeah. And my show's also, it's basically the same thing, with a bit more swearing in it.
Are you at the Cabaret Bar? You're at the Cabaret Bar?
I'm doing the Newtown Theatre in George Street.
Oh, right, yes.
Doing this, chatting to people.
This is the Pleasance Courtyard.
Yeah.
And the Cabaret Bar.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, mine's at the Newtown Theatre on George.
We could go on like this.
Got to just keep on saying
but
it.
Nobody's making any notes.
We'll give him a pad. We'll give him a leaflet on the way out. Was Kenneth Williams as crazy off stage as on stage? I mean, what I loved about him, and just a minute, was just the childishness of the way he got upset about losing.
No, because Kenneth, I knew him very well. I was in rep with Kenneth, actually.
Yeah.
I've got some wonderful stories I did in my one-man show, but I'm not going to waste them here. And I knew him very well, and he was eccentric and he was difficult.
Yeah.
But the other thing about Kenneth was, towards the end, he loved being on Just a Minute. It was his favourite job.
Yeah.
Because it gave him a chance to show off his knowledge and erudition, because he was self-taught.
Yes.
You know, he came from this little barber shop in Marchmont Street in near King's Cross. And because a lot of people don't know, originally he had aspirations to be taken seriously as an actor.
Yeah.
He was a very good straight actor.
Yeah.
He got an award for playing the Dauphin in Bernard Shaw's St. Joan at the Arts Theatre.
Yeah.
And but these voices he put on, which were character voices to get a laugh in the carry-ons, and he became identified with him. And if you read his diaries, he was never proud of the fact about that, because he didn't want to be known for that. He wanted to be known for his ability, his talent. So he loved doing Just a Minute. I always introduced him last, and he used to walk on the stage and stick his little bottom out. And he'd play to the audience. He always had the chair down there. And Ian Messer, who thought of the subjects, would often give him something rather intellectual, like Aphrodite. And he knew something about him. So he preened himself and he'd do all that sort of stuff. And he started talking about Aphrodite, and then he'd be challenged for hesitation. And then he'd go into a strop, because he knew the subject had been chosen for him. The others didn't want the bloody thing, but... then I had to nurse him. Had to nurse him out of it. And I somehow would twist a challenge to get him back in. I said, now, Kenneth, I'm sure you know more about this. I'm sure they're just waiting. Look, the audience, look, they're preening themselves. They're longing to hear from you. You've got another 30 seconds. Carry on. This is how he played it. He played to the audience. And then, you see, it's what you brought up. You do that thing, because if he was challenged, and he knew he'd probably chosen subject for him, he said, that's when he went into his strop. No, you ruined it for me. No. Oh, you're fools to yourselves. No, that's not messing about with me. I know about it. You don't know Aphrodite. Now let me have a go. and he would do it, you see, to get the laugh. But all the time he was really bloody angry.
Yeah. Well, you could never tell whether it was real. But I just think it's the way you have to play. It's like being a straight man. You have to play it seriously, and being on those panel shows, you have to play it even if it is the truth. You have to be that competitive in order for it. It was so entertaining, but it is. It's an incredibly difficult game to play.
It's seriously difficult, because I once said you think of hesitation, repetition, deviation, and in the world of comedy, I mean, you hesitate for effect, you deviate for and you repeat for emphasis. Yeah. And they're the three things you can't do in just a minute, and it's a comedy show. It's a weird thing. And because Clement Freud was very difficult. Now, he was the difficult one, because he resented the fact that I was moving the program forward and making subtle changes in the rules in order to make it more user-friendly and entertaining. And he resented it. He wanted to keep it the old-fashioned way, as it was when it first started. But if they'd done that, it would have gone the way of sort of My Word and My Music, two wonderful shows. Yes. But they died a natural death, you see. But ours has changed, got new people in, has evolved, and it's still going strong. And why was I saying this?
Oh, it's a fascinating thing. I think. Do you think it will go on forever, the show, or do you think it's?
We can make it go on forever if you keep refreshing it in different ways, which I try to do. And as you pay me the compliment of saying I'm a good foil or a straight man or so forth, but you know how to flatter people to get the best response. You see? And you get to know them. Then it's and I have fun at their expense. But I think you lay yourself open to being having. I don't say it's not being ridiculed, because ridicule is embarrassing. But having fun at someone's expense, as you've had a bit of fun at my expense this evening, and we've laughed.
I think you've had a bit of fun at my expense.
But this is what we're talking about. This is how I know how to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I've had a lot of fun at your expense. And it's got some good laughs as well. Probably more laughs at your expense than you've ever had before. Do most people send you up like that?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, right. This is my job. This is my role on this show.
Yeah.
Maybe
you've got lots of bloody writing there. What is it all?
It's just to remind me. Well, the things that I have to talk to you about, that this lot will be upset if I don't mention, is you being Reverend Wainwright in Doctor Who.
Oh yes,
they love Doctor Who. This lot. Which Doctor Who did you work with?
Sylvester McCoy.
Okay. Yeah.
And. It was amazing. I didn't understand what it was all about, but but you just act the part and so forth. Yes, I was a very serious doctor. We did locations in somewhere near Reading. I remember we were near a church, and I was already dressed up as the vicar and so forth. This woman came up to me and said, "Oh, Vicar, I wanted to speak to you. The woman's meeting on Sunday. Do you think we could possibly..." I said, "I think you'll need to speak to the actual vicar of the church. I'm doing a film here." "Oh," she said, "my God, I recognise you. You're Nicholas Parsons." And now and she was overcome. But Johnny Spate, who wrote a lot of the sketches for Arthur Haynes. He wrote a lot of sketches with vicars in them. Can you believe when he first wrote it, we weren't allowed to do it because you couldn't have a comedy sketch with a vicar.
Right.
Well, they had strong rules. Anyway, eventually we won the day, and he read a lot of vicars. And he said to me, he said, well, no, Johnny had a bad stutter. He said, I love the sketch when you're a vicar, because he said, I mean, you look like a bloody vicar. I said, vicars aren't bloody, don't we? Do you know, I wish I hadn't told that story. It didn't mean a bloody thing, did it?
There's no way back. There's no way back. And are you annoyed that Giles Brandreth took your record as the longest after doing a speech?
Well, I beat him once.
Yeah.
But Giles is very competitive. He couldn't bear we shared it for a time. And he didn't want to be in the Guinness Book of Wales as shared. So he went again and beat me. And, well, good luck to him, because I wasn't going to go again. Nearly killed me. I went for...
You did 11 hours, did you?
11 hours I did, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
It's unbelievable.
I'm thinking of 11 hours of Giles Brandreth, to be honest. That's what's really... it's really turning my stomach.
Yeah. They did it. They set it up. It was for a charity called Action Research for the Crippled Child, and they set it up. Excuse me. Can I open that thing and have a drink of water?
Shall I open it for you?
And so already Giles had got the record, and then I took it away from him, and they said, well, what we thought we might do now, we'll go again. I said, oh, no, I don't want to do it again. He said, well, we might raise a lot of money. And there was about £10,000, and that's a lot of money. And this was many years ago. And we're going to go to the Hyde Park Hotel. You'll be in different rooms, because they set it up properly with a proper dinner party there, and an adjudicator, and your guests. And you just talked to them and got the laughs. And people would come in and pay to see me and get some money from the charity, and then they go and watch Giles. And I could hear his laughs, and he could hear mine. So it spurred us on. And they decided that we're both fighters. We weren't going to give in. And so after the 11th hour, they called an honourable draw. And that's when Giles was very offended. He wanted to keep going till one of us dropped dead. And so he went on his own. They phoned me up and said, Giles wants to go again. I said, well, let him go. I know Giles. He's he's a good friend.
Yes.
But he is very competitive.
Yeah.
As proved. And he's got the record now. Why did you bring that up? It didn't get many laughs.
You got some good laughs on the way.
All right.
And also, we don't have to have laughs. We can have some, we can have some tears.
Oh, yes.
We can have some tears.
Interesting conversation. The after-dinner speech record, yes.
Well, I've got to do an after-dinner speech in Cheddar this coming Friday. I haven't written anything yet.
No. Well, you can talk about cheese.
Yeah, I can talk about cheese.
And there
They're
are lots of
probably sick
different
of it.
kinds of cheese.
Yeah.
And I don't have any jokes about cheese, though, that you could possibly use. I'll think of one afterwards, I'm sure.
I'm trying to think of one now.
But cheddar. Anybody got any jokes about cheddar cheese?
Yeah, go on.
All right. What?
We're waiting. Are you keeping it? He said, yeah, I'm keeping it to myself.
I used all my breath out on the shout.
You used all your breath on the shouts. This is not a great start to this comedy career. Okay.
What's an Inuit's favourite cheese?
What's an Inuit's favourite cheese?
Brie.
Brie, I think, is what he's going. He kind of hit the E a bit, so I think he's going for brie.
I think that's what you'd call a failed comedian.
Yeah. Mate, it wasn't good enough. Hey?
Can anybody get any Gouda?
Right, well, look, we should say you do tour just every now and again. You're doing shows out and about.
I don't do a continuous tour.
Yeah.
I had to break in between because I'm getting a bit older. And I do single nights here, there. I'm going down shipping Salisbury quite soon. I'm going somewhere else. It's in the diary.
You do a 2-hour show, which is...
I do a 2-hour show, yeah.
Yeah.
And I bought some books, by the way, to sell if anyone...
These people will come and buy books from you in the interval. We'll quickly talk about you did Rocky Horror Show narrator again.
Yes, the Rocky Horror Show.
So dressed up in ladies' underwear, I'm presuming. Is that?
No, I was very smartly dressed in a crushed velvet smoking jacket. But at the end, it was my idea, and I got hoisted on my own professional baton because the Rocky Horror Show. Any fans of Rocky Horror Show here? Well, as you know, they all shout out things, don't they, the fans? You know, when you mention the Brad Majors thing, they all shout out, "Arsehole!" And, but when the narrator first comes on, they've always been played in a very pompous way. And they always just shout, "Boring, boring, boring, get off, pissed off, get off, pissed off." And I wasn't going to stand there and be insulted. I took over the role, so I waited, and I started gagging and ad-libbing with them, and they liked that. So they waited, and they stopped shouting that out. And then I would say, what were the words? I would like, if I may, and they all come back with, "You may, thank you. I'd like, if I may, to take you." And I look at them, I say, "Mind you, some of you I couldn't take anywhere. Others sound as if you've been taken already." And they loved all this gagging. And then when I started up, and then they sat out that evening, Brad Majors, and they all shout out the traditional thing of the regular, said, "Arsehole!" So I said, "That's a side of him I don't know very well." So this went down very well.
Yeah.
And I said to the producer when I first took over, I said, "I'm very formally dressed there." And at the end, after the big full show number, they all come on. They're all dressed the same in fishnet tights and suspender belts and basques and high heel shoes. I said, "I come on and join them at the end for the big bow. Do you think it would be an amusing idea I appear to have joined the gang and was dressed the same?" And he looked at me incredulously and said, "Nicholas, would you really?" I said, "I think it might get quite a laugh." I said, "Well," he said, "No, I think it'll bring the house down." So they kept the jacket on, and I used to come on with the suspender belt and the fishnet stockings and the high heel shoes. My God, high heels are bloody difficult to wear. They're rare. I nearly fell over once or twice. Anyway, and I would come on, and you didn't get a very, very good reaction. But the irony was, afterwards people would say to me, "Oh, must congratulate you." And I waited for a lovely comment about my performance. He said, "You've got very good legs." You see, fellas don't think about their legs, but fishnet stockings show them off to great advantage. And with the high heel shoes as well. So, it was a memorable thing. I did 3 or 4 different tours of that.
Really, yeah.
I must keep this under my base. I must talk into it, right? No, I did...
It's a bit late to realise that, Nicholas.
I did a season in London, the Duke of York's. I did 2 seasons in London, and 3 or 4 different tours. And so... yes, it's a great, memorable part of my professional life.
It's amazing all the different things. You were in a roller skating panto dame, according to your website.
Yes. I thought it would be a bit of a gimmick. A dame coming on roller skates. Very mean management he was. He's dead now, so I mention his name. And because I said to me, "By the way, I went off and I had some lessons and bought the skates. What about the money?" He said, "Well, that was your idea." I said, "No, it's in the bloody script." I said, "And you wrote it? Anyway, you made me pay for it. But I've still got the roller skates. I want to sell them, by the way. Anybody want to buy a pair of roller skates?"
What if you get another part where you need to roller skate, though, Nicholas?
Too old for that now. All I can do to walk on, let a roller skate on.
You never say no. So it's 75 years in show business already, or is that coming?
75 years,
this
yes.
year?
I mean, 5 years in Clydebank and then 75 years in show business. Not a lot of difference.
Well,
you do have a lovely audience.
They are very nice. They're very nice. You're welcome to come back anytime. I hope there's another 75
well, I can't.
years.
I've told him all my best gags already.
Okay.
Except the one about the cheese.
Yeah. I think you've held back. I think you've held back some stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please give an enormous round of applause, Mr. Nicholas Parsons!
Thank you. Thank you.
around you.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?